Welcome back to a new SVGator tutorial. My name is Astrid and today we're going to animate a pie chart. Alright, so our pie chart here is basically a couple of different folders. So we have our strokes group folder and all of our different colors here are strokes. So for example, this orange one is a stroke and 100% width stroke, and it's just an orange stroke here, and all of the different colors are the same thing. And then the labels are in its own folder. And what we're gonna do is animate the big pieces first. So the blue one, the lilac one, and the pink one. And then we're gonna do the small ones, and then we're gonna add the labels as the last step. So basically a 3-part animation, but everything's gonna happen fairly quickly. So let's go ahead and select the blue part first, since it's the big one, the biggest one, and I'm gonna animate its stroke offset. But since this is the final state of the animation, we're gonna work backwards. So I'm gonna select blue here, and I'm gonna animate the stroke offset. So I'm gonna work with the dashes value and the offset value, and I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna add a keyframe, and as the first frame of the animation shows, I want to see just a little bit of that blue instead of nothing, like a black, a white or a blank canvas. So I do want to show some of that blue because it's the highest value here. So I want to show maybe 420 here in the offset. And I'm gonna select now the lilac, and I'm gonna do something very similar, but instead of kind of like a random value that I did for the blue, I'm gonna match that dashes value to the offset value. So that way it disappears completely. And then I'm gonna do something very similar with the pink one. So stroke offset animation, add a keyframe, and then match that value. So I'm gonna hide the gray, the red, and the orange so we can see what's going on here. And we have a problem there with the lilac. It has like that weird gap, and we don't want that happening because it doesn't look right. And also I want the whole thing to rotate so it looks more interesting instead of just the different parts just appearing. So what I'm gonna do is select the whole strokes group folder, and we can see here that we have a minus 60-degree rotation. But what if we do something like, as the first in the first frame, what if we start here at minus 180 and then it rotates this way to match the labels? So let's go ahead and do that. So we have minus 60, and let's do an animation here. So I'm gonna do, maybe the whole thing lasts 2 seconds. I'm gonna select my strokes group folder. I'm gonna animate the rotation, and I'm gonna go back to the first frame, add another keyframe. And then I'm going to change that 60 for 180. And then when I play, I have this cool rotation. I still have that problem with the lilac color. So let's see what's going on here. If I select my lilac, it looks like I also have this rotation of 297. So what I'm going to do to fix it is also add a rotation to it. So I kind of have to reset its rotation. So I'm going to do rotation here, add a rotation, and then go back to the first frame and reset that to 360. Basically 0 there. So that way it appears next to the blue for a second, or for a frame rather. And then it rotates, and it kind of gives it a cool effect of appearing next to the blue first, and then it goes next to the pink. So that fixes our problem with the gap. Now that we have the first 3 big ones, we can go ahead and move on to the orange, the red, and the gray. Let's start with the orange. At 1 second here, I want my orange. So basically we're gonna do the same process again. We're gonna do stroke offset animation. I want my orange to be completely invisible at first, so I'm going to match that dashes to offset value. And then do the same thing for my for my red one. And lastly, the same for the gray one. Now if I play, they all appear, but they're appearing at the same time, and that's not as fun. So what I'm gonna do is move them just a couple frames to the right. So they kind of like, we see the orange first, then the red, and then the gray one. So I think maybe just one frame would be enough here. Something like that. And there we have it. Our pie chart is animated. Now we can move on to the labels. So all we have to do is kind of sync the labels with, as our pie chart animates, sync the labels. So I want to do something very simple here. I want my labels to scale up and show right next to their color, which they're already there. So all we have to do is animate the scale of each one. And I want the first one to appear probably around this point in the timeline. So I can actually select all of them and add a scale animation. That way we save some time, and then it should happen pretty quickly. So a couple of frames here, and we can go from a scale of 0 to 1. So we go from 0 to 1, and we don't have to do one by one. And then all we have to do is move each one to the right. Well, it looks like the only one that's not in the right place is the gray one. So I'm just gonna delete that one for now. And then I can do pink, orange, red, and then I can add gray over here, which is the last one. So animate scale, and very easy. We can go from 0 to 1. And we just saved a bunch of time instead of doing that one by one. And then we can also add maybe ease out back here, so it kind of bounces a little bit, and then check the timing. I think that's actually pretty good, and everything's matching. And let's see from the beginning once again. We can always make it a little bit faster if we move the whole rotation and then sync the labels once again. But there we have it. This is our pie chart animation. And that's it. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more SVGator tutorials.